What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm back in a video. This time once again, we're looking at one of the most polarizing players in the NBA, that being Ben Simmons. And so far in Simmons' career, it's been a pretty rocky road. He had his ups as well as his downs. This past year in 2021 was a mixed bag that you wouldn't believe. But going back to the absolute start of Ben Simmons' career in 2016, he came into the NBA as a #1 overall pick and a very high caliber prospect. He was called the next LeBron James, the next guy up, the next Magic Johnson, and a future Hall of Famer. And 4 years into his career, those comparisons have not aged great. I mean, he has some decent accolades, a 3-time All-Star, a 2-time All-Defensive Player, and established himself as one of the best defensive guards in the league. But if you're looking for those LeBron Magic comparisons, they simply aren't there, and they were never appropriate. And you could very well argue Ben Simmons offensively, from his rookie year till now, has plateaued and even gotten worse. I mean, comparing his stats, he's down in points, assists, steals, as well as blocks. In the playoffs, he averaged 11.9 points per game, 8.8 assists, and 7.9 boards. Definitely not all-star caliber numbers, even for Ben Simmons, below his usual output. And I think the disdain for Ben Simmons, it crescendoed versus the Hawks. In those last 3 games of that series, Ben Simmons would not shoot the ball in the fourth quarters. In those last 3 games, he averaged 6.3 points per game on 43% shooting. That's an all-star averaging 6 points per game over a 3-game sample size. Absolutely unacceptable. So in this first minute and a half, I've kind of bashed Ben Simmons and given the overall run-through of his faults and his downfall. And I would assume 90% NBA fans have effectively given up on Ben Simmons as an NBA All-Star and a future great player. Me myself, I'm kind of split into 2 categories. I can see both arguments, and I think both groups have valid points. But it's pretty obvious Ben Simmons and his stock is at an all-time low. And me being me, saying that, I'm actually investing in Ben Simmons this upcoming season. And I'm going to claim myself as a Ben Simmons believer for 2022. And if you're wondering why I would do that, here's a couple of reasons. Ben Simmons in Philadelphia for the past 5 years has at best the #2 option and at worst the #4 option. And in his time, he's never truly had his own team built around him and his strengths. And Ben Simmons' strengths is getting to the basket, creating contact, passing on the break, feeding the bigs, and just running in transition and finishing at the rim. That's where Ben Simmons thrives offensively, but playing with Joel Embiid, it's kind of hard to do that. So for 1 second, let's imagine Ben Simmons had his own team, or at least a team that complemented his playstyle. I think in that environment, he would thrive offensively as well as defensively. And how I'd back this up is looking at Ben Simmons without Joel Embiid for the past 3 years. It's a 49-game sample size. In those games, Ben Simmons averaged 18.2 points per game, 8.7 boards, 6.8 assists, and 1.9 steals. I would argue those numbers are among the top tier point guards in the entire NBA. Also adding the fact Ben Simmons is an elite defender. So for Ben Simmons to truly reach his peak and his potential, I think it's obvious he has to get away from Joel Embiid. I'm not saying Joel's the problem, but those 2 guys as a duo, they really never made sense, and to this day, they're highly dysfunctional when it comes to on-the-court play. And go back to 2020, people had real discussions of who was more valuable, Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid. There were real talks in the NBA that Philly should take Simmons over Embiid for the future. Now, also when talking about Ben Simmons, his biggest strength is on the defensive end. In the modern NBA, that's not really a good thing. I mean, in the 90s, the 70s, maybe the 80s, Ben Simmons could have been a much better player. But in 2021, offense is so heavily forced that Ben Simmons' defensive impact kind of gets lost. I mean, this past year, he was top 10 in 4 different defensive categories, that being steals, defensive win shares, defensive box plus minus, and defensive rating. And he was the best guard defender and the best perimeter defender in the entire NBA. And here's a pretty odd comparison I haven't seen many people make. I think Ben Simmons is the guard version of Rudy. I mean, both these guys kind of got exposed in the playoffs, Rudy in the Clippers series, and Ben versus the Hawks. And offensively, both these guys are below average for their position. But unlike Ben Simmons, Rudy is in the right spot on the right team with the right fit. He's not the #1 option, but he's highly effective in his role and what he provides to Utah. I think Ben Simmons at his best, out of Philadelphia, is a solid number 2 option, similar to Rudy Gobert. And on Ben's best nights, he can carry you defensively and be above average offensively. And to put it very simply, Ben Simmons, he's a number 2 option with number 1 traits. Now in this video so far, I've given some points as to why I still believe in Ben Simmons, and I want to say, I am not a Ben Simmons fan or a fan of Philly. But what I am a fan of is NBA players who are highly disliked and the people give up on. Guys like Paul George in 2020 and Andrew Wiggins basically his entire career. And both those two guys this past season stepped up in big time ways and finally came through for their teams. I think Ben Simmons in his own weird way is going to have that renaissance in his career. And my general belief in NBA players, the superstar all-star caliber guys, they're highly competitive, they're highly motivated, and in the end, they will find a way to make it work. I know it looks bleak for Ben Simmons, but keep in mind he's only 25 years old and still has tons of potential. So in effect, I'm a Ben Simmons believer, and I am buying stock in his game this upcoming season. And I think for his basketball future, there's two ways this can go. Down the dark path, where he's a role player and a borderline fringe starter, or the great path, where he's a number 2 option and a lockdown defensive player. I lean towards that option, but you guys know my thoughts. Now, last thing when talking about Ben Simmons, the one thing I have to point out is his confidence and his mental mindset. I think in 2021 versus the Hawks, Ben Simmons, in a weird way, had a basketball mental breakdown. I mean, in the fourth quarters of those games, he was scared to shoot layups or even touch the ball. He was quite literally afraid to play basketball. And like the old saying goes, sports is 95% mental and 5% physical. I think that old saying perfectly describes Ben Simmons in 2021. So in conclusion, I'm a Ben Simmons believer, and going forward, I want him out of Philadelphia for a team that better suits his skill set. And as always, let me know your guys' thoughts. Have you given up on Ben Simmons? Can he rebound? And what is his future in the NBA? As always, let me know your guys' thoughts. And once again, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.